Welcome to Your Path to Nonprofit Leadership, the weekly podcast that features the very best in career development in the nonprofit sector. I'm your host, Patton McDowell, and I'm committed to bring you ideas and resources that will enhance your professional development journey. Well, I had another fantastic conversation in this episode with Tom Vozzo, who serves as the CEO of Homeboy Industries, the internationally acclaimed nonprofit enterprise founded by Father Greg Boyle. And like so many inspired by Father Greg, Tom started as a volunteer and ultimately left a hugely successful corporate career to become the unpaid CEO of what is now a global network of over 400 organizations. And while Tom certainly brings great experience from his for-profit success to this Los Angeles-based nonprofit organization, but he would suggest there are just as many lessons learned from his nonprofit tenure that would benefit his for-profit peers as much as the other way around. Either way, you're going to benefit from the advice that's going in both directions from this fantastic conversation I had with Tom. So don't forget to check out the show notes for this is episode number 158. Just go to the podcast or the news blog at pattonmcdowell.com. And you'll find all of the resources we talked about, as well as information on Tom and the great work he's doing at Homeboy Industries, and of course, how you can get a copy of his book entitled The Homeboy Way. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Tom Vozzo. Tom, thank you for joining me on the path.
Happy to be here, Patton. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited about this conversation. You've written a fantastic book that chronicles your experiences in the for-profit and the nonprofit world. And it's exactly what I think many of our listeners need to hear, that you have applied both sides of the spectrum to your experience. You've had a fantastic experience at Homeboy Industries. But let me just ask the fundamental question. Why'd you write the book?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've thought about for a long time. And listen, I had a successful career in the for-profit space, 26 years as a corporate executive. My last role was leading a $2 billion set of businesses. And I only say that because I talk about it's about size and scale. And then I contrast that to my now working at Homeboy Industries. And when I first started at Homeboy Industries, we were about $11 million nonprofit organization. I quickly say to people, we raise $11 million and we spend $11 million. So we spend everything we raise. And now we're a $30 million organization. And along the way, particularly those first several years of me being at Homeboy, I learned so much about, not just about running a nonprofit, but so much about people and people on the margins. And that I thought, boy, if I was ever to go back to the for-profit world, what lessons would I bring back to the for-profit world? And that's what sort of was the genesis of me starting to write a book. And then the book came, as I was writing it, though, it became more of, here are the struggles of running a nonprofit, and here's what I've learned, and I can take from the for-profit world and bring it to the nonprofit world. And also in the book is talking about my own faith journey and spiritual journey that for sure I could never have learned that one in the for-profit world. It's only being in this space at Homeboy Industry has led me along those lines. So it's all those three things that are in there, and happy to chat more with you about each of those if you want.
I'm excited to do exactly that. For our listeners who don't know the wonderful work happening at Homeboy Industries, tell us what exactly is it, that organization?
Right. Right. We help, our mission is to help people who have been incarcerated and people who are gang involved and affiliated change their life. So essentially we're a nonprofit, we're a human services agency. We cut to the chase. We help former felons and gang members change their life. And so when people come out of the jail or prison system, and they know they don't want to go back running with the gang, but there's they don't know how to get out of that situation. They walk through our doors and we welcome them in and we help them in, we mentor people. And so, we have two parts of our program. We have our paid program where people come in and we employ them to work on themselves, which is pretty unique and very costly model. But essentially, our founder, Father Greg Boyle, a Jesuit priest, founded Homeboy Industries 30 years ago. His first stop as a priest he was stationed at Dolores Mission, which was the poorest parish in all the Archdiocese of Los Angeles.
Wow.
And happened to also be the epicenter of gang violence in the late 80s and 90s. And he just saw these men, young men and women, kind of just life spinning downward, and he wanted to come up with something different. And so hit upon this notion that's so obvious, right? Boy, if you can employ them and get them enough money for food and shelter, they're not going to run with the gangs for that money for food and shelter. And so from there, Homeboy started as a jobs program, then moved into social enterprise businesses. But really, we're about helping people foundationally heal from their trauma, since all gang members that we work with have been victims of complex trauma at a very young age. 10, 12, 13, they've been jumped into the gangs. Their families abuse them. The gangs abuse them. And so really for them to leave the gang and leave that troubled life, they have to heal from that trauma. And we're there to help them heal. And along the way, so they're doing that while we pay them. And along the way, we have social enterprise businesses. And so part of the time they start working in our businesses, and we teach them how to work as well. So we work with about 8,000 people every year walk through our doors.
It's fantastic. How did you first become affiliated with the organization? Were you a volunteer or just became aware of it? Tell me how you got involved.
Yeah, right. So back in my corporate life, we always were sort of asked to be local. And so when in my business, I was located in Southern California, and I was on the board of the Salvation Army of Los Angeles. And a great organization. I so admire what the Salvation Army does. The motto, heart to God, hand to man, is sort of encapsulates everything the Salvation Army does. And so a fellow board member, though, was my friend of mine was on that board. And when he had learned I left my corporate job, he invited me down to the Homegirl Cafe for lunch. I never heard of Homeboy. And so I'm sitting there in the Homegirl Cafe, and we're having lunch, and I can kind of tell he's trying to talk me up about getting me involved. And as he's talking, I'm like looking around, and at the Homegirl Cafe, it's our population it's the former gang members and felons who are working there. And as he's talking, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm looking around, I'm saying these people they're enjoying their jobs, they're interacting with customers. I'm thinking I would have never hired these folks in my for-profit world. And that here they are finding dignity in work, working hard, moving their life forward. And so in the context of a job, they're changing their life. And so when my friend asked me to get involved, I'm thinking, sure, I wanted to know what this is about, but I didn't want to be a board member. I've done that. So I wanted to see if I can roll up my sleeve and put my business skills to use in a different way. And so I signed on as a volunteer. And, and then a couple months later, Father Greg asked me to be the CEO, which I didn't think I wanted to be a CEO. And again, and really, I'm thinking, what does a for-profit guy know about running a nonprofit? But the opportunity to be part of in Father Greg's orbit, which I think he's a living saint, was too good to pass up. And look, I had all the hubris of a corporate CEO. I thought, okay, I'll do this for 6 months and be done.
Right.
And 9.5 years later, I'm still loving what I do.
Well, you allude to the spiritual journey. I mean, was it, again, I know it's cliche almost, but was there a bit of a calling, or when did that kind of spiritual element kick in?
Yeah, it really didn't kick in until later, a few months in. And really, listen, so what I want to talk about why I left I wanted to leave the corporate life behind.
Yep.
Look, I love business. I think well-run companies are good for our society. People can make their life dreams come true via the business, right? And so, but in the end, the way the rules of our society is set up, the capitalist system is set up, that you have shareholders and you have employees, right, and customers.
Yeah.
You try to keep that in balance, but at the end of the day, when there's always going to be rubber meets the road, shareholders rule and
take
employees
precedent.
don't.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I've been through too many downsizing and I had to lead too much in downsizing, and I'm seeing how this affects lives. And folks who have dedicated their life to a company get laid off because we have to make it earnings. We have to make sure we hit our earnings targets along the way. And I was thinking there's got to be a better way. And that sort of said, I love my time in corporate America. I really value it. But I thought to myself, there's got to be a different way. And so I guess it's almost by providence that I ended up at Homeboy, because here I ended up at this nonprofit that actually is running businesses, helping people change their life. And that is a better way, is how can people grow via their job and thrive and find self-worth? And that's what was there in front of me at Homeboy. And so that's sort of the inner sense what drove me to saying yes to let me try this at Homeboy. And then as you're part of someone's life, as they're transforming from such trauma to to mainstream back into society, it is pretty special. And you see how they rely upon their own their faith and their own spirituality, which kind of got me to more open my eyes about my own faith, because you can't do that in the for-profit world as much.
Right.
And maybe even some nonprofits you still can't do it. But at least at Homeboy, we do speak about our faiths and our spirituality. And it's not one, it's people, whoever they want to pray to, they pray to it along the way.
Right.
But as Father Greg would say, part of what we're about is relationships with people. And it's about moving yourself to the margins, people on the margins of our society, and being in kinship with them. And you learn a lot. And that's what I've learned at Homeboy Industries, which has propelled me on my faith journey.
Love that. And as you mentioned earlier in a previous conversation, that the book in many respects is written for your former corporate self, right? Or someone like you.
Yeah.
And I guess lessons, right, that you've learned in nonprofit that apply to for-profit.
That's right. And let me say it this way. And part of me is I'm still got that competitive corporate guy in me where I just I get angry about things, right?
Yeah,
and
let's hear it.
Part of me is the let's stay back and absorb. But the angry side is, listen, I've been now on the front lines with people who are poor in our society, people who are unhoused, people who have food insecurity, and I see their struggles. Poverty rate in America has been the same for 45 years. We have to do better. And I think, and Homeboy has a way of doing better for people, allowing people to move from being poor to living an okay life and a better life. And so part of what I'm saying is there's a way of going about this, and the business community, I think, because I'm still a committed capitalist, business community can lead that way. They just have to think differently. They can employ the folks who are poor and create quality jobs and move people forward. But it's not just about willingly giving them a job. You have to provide a support network around. And that's kind of a lot of the lessons that are in there, is how do you actually make that work successfully, not just have the idea.
Because I wonder, Tom, and you run into this all the time, I'm sure. I'm in the corporate world. And I'm like, yeah, Tom, I hear you, but I'm responsive to the shareholders. So how can I do anything differently? But are you saying it's particularly in the hiring practices that maybe corporate America would be more amenable to?
Yeah, listen, I want to be, there's two things in there. I want to be super clear. It takes dedication from the top, from the board, the CEO, that we're going to advocate to helping the working poor move forward in our society, which means you're not going to be as profitable, but it might only cost you 50 basis points on your profitability, right? But you got to be able to, I mean, this whole like shareholder equity and this shareholder roundtable and all this concept, like I read these things and I said, well, okay, that's talking about maybe a green economy, but where's people talking about you got to actually put a little bit more money into your employees. You have to put some services. So that's the first answer. Second answer is it's not just about willingly hiring a felon in our case.
Yeah,
but you have to be willing to kind of treat them differently. I'm going to give you two examples.
Good.
I have along the way, each year, Homeboy, I have an executive assistant, right? And so it's a home girl. It's turned to be, one time it was a homeboy, but it was a home girl who are struggling. And yet part of our responsibility is teach them how to do all different jobs. So I have an executive assistant, right? Just as everybody would have in the corporate world.
Yeah.
And so we're teaching along the way. And she is very dedicated to the job. Look, she's a single mother. She was in youth camp when she was 16 years old, in and out, single mother at 18, no family support, been homeless, been in shelters, but she cares so much about her change in her job. So we have board meetings. And so every quarter we have a board meeting. They're 7:30 in the morning. And she would get there at 7:00, make sure the tables are set up, the water is set up, the paperwork's all set, right? So this is what you want out of somebody who's working. Well, the night before one of our board meetings, her parole officer calls her up and says, you need to report in to the office tomorrow for fill out paperwork. And she said, well, wait, I have responsibilities at work. I have to be there early in the morning. And the parole officer says, if you don't show up in my office, I'm going to violate you and you're back in jail. It's like, wow. And so obviously we at Homeboy understand all this. So we're going to say, that's okay. We'll cover for you.
We'll work with
you. But would other companies do that? Maybe if you get to the right manager, but they have all these rules in place. So our folks have they want to do the right thing. People are but there's so many challenges society throws at them that it's so hard to get by. I'm going to give you one more story.
No, it's
along
great.
these ways. So, we also run a bakery at Homeboy, artisan bread, Homeboy Bakery. And artisan bread means handmade bread. And why that's such a perfect business for us is, listen, there are over 200 different gangs in LA County and over 125,000 gang members. And all those gangs are enemies with each other, right? And so when folks come into Homeboy, it's about, we don't deal with gangs, we deal with gang members, and we teach them not to hate each other, right? And so there's nothing better than standing shoulder to shoulder on the bread table, rolling dough with your enemy and learning they got to work together to get the job done. And that's what breaks down a lot of barriers. Okay, so we have our Homeboy Bakery. We also sell our bread at farmers markets around Los Angeles. And it's a good job for our folks because they're interacting with the public and selling the bread and all. So one of our best guys, George, at the farmers market, early on in my time at Homeboy, I was walking through the bakery and I heard George talking to our bakery manager, asking for the weekend off. And so I was such a rookie and new guy at this point. But I go up to George and say, hey, what are you doing the weekend? I'm thinking, is he going away? Is he sort of have an event going on? And he turns to me and says, no, I'm reporting in. I'm thinking, well, what's that mean? Right. I have got that quizzical look. And he says, no, I said, I'm reporting to county jail. And I'm going to turn myself in for 3 days for the weekend. And I said, huh? And he said, that's the only way I can reduce my debt. Now, these guys come out of prison with massive amount of debt, not just restitution for their crime, but they have court costs, parole officer costs. It's amazing what our society throws on them for
Would not realize all that. Yep.
And then how does society think they're earning money in prison to pay their debts? It's the nuttiest thing.
Yep.
And so what he can do is you can go to county jail for 3 days and reduce your debt by a certain amount. And so he told me that, and I walked away thinking, wow, that's pretty responsible for him. He didn't go to his homie and his gang to borrow money because he didn't want to have that type of connection.
More debt. Yeah.
More debt. And he didn't want to owe them anything. He didn't want to go to family, owe them anything. He said, I'm gonna handle this myself, right? Something super responsible. So I was thinking about it all weekend, and wondering, hey, should I just have offered to help him pay his debt or not? But putting that aside, so I see him the following Tuesday, and hey, George, how did it work out? And I can see the stress on his face. And he said it didn't go well. And I was well, what happened? Well, he also, when he come out of prison, he got custody of his two children, 10 and 8 years old, and so the person who was going to watch them the weekend never showed up and couldn't come through, but he also had to end up going to county jail. So he left them in the apartment for 3 days on their own. And he was so stressed over that, rightly so. And the story is it turned out fine. But why do I tell the story? It was so clear to me. He's like, I was devastated hearing it, but I had to stop myself from judging. Did he make the right decision? Wow, how can he leave his kids? What's going on? It's like, we just got to not judge. People have so many challenges, just not judge. And so if you get to the point of not judging people for their situation they're in and what decision they did make or didn't make, that's the type of support we need to give folks as these type of folks are trying to move into the workforce, to recognize life is difficult for them. We got to give them space, and we have to support them and mightily not judge them along the way.
You're such a good champion for this. And I love your phrase of better understanding these people that are on the margins, because we stereotype them, don't we, Tom? We just assume they're bad people. And what you have seen up close is there are a lot of really good people who have been put in impossible situations.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the key is, and this is where the other thing I talk about in my book is, we got this in the society, and I came to Homeboy with a full-throated advocate of the meritocracy in our society, because to me, look, from my own hard work and my dedication, my skill, I was able to be successful.
Yes, indeed.
And work hard, right? But now I recognize, boy, meritocracy doesn't work for people who are poor in our society. Absolutely not. And so back to the phrase you just said, we sort of make assumptions, demonize them. Oftentimes we as society wag our finger, just work hard and you'll get ahead. As Martin Luther King says, it's cruel jest to say that people can pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they don't have boots. I mean,
exactly right.
They don't have a support network around it. And that's this concept we have to understand, that people want self-worth in their job, right? And how do we in the business community, in the for-profit and nonprofit world, make sure that people find self-worth in the job? And it's not about measuring, it's not about saying they're a good person or a bad person, but allowing them to thrive in their job is the most important part of this.
Love it. Let me go back to when you first started as CEO. As you said, you had managed huge, complex organizations.
Mm-hmm.
What surprised you when you went into the nonprofit CEO role? I'm sure much of what you knew and experienced transferred, but I'm guessing not everything transferred exactly
Not everything
to
transferred,
managing
right.
Homeboy. Is that fair?
Yeah, but yeah, not everything. But a great majority does transfer over along the way. What surprised me, but it's on stuff that's mostly good, right? I mean, it's in the nonprofit world. The workforce, the staff are very dedicated, very mission driven, and that's a strength. But I see, though, sometimes when that happens too much, is that people feel like everybody owns their view of the mission when it needs to be our collective view of the mission. And so
Yes.
Oftentimes when I first came in, Homeboy is an interesting organization where we're a human services agency. We have all these programs, anger management, DV counseling, substance abuse counseling, therapy. We take off 12,000 tattoos a year. So a lot of stuff on the program side,
Wow.
in addition
Yep.
to running businesses. And so I would find our managers of each of those areas had their own view of the mission. And when I tried to hold them accountable to getting their functional jobs done, like a little bit, the response was, well, I'm just doing the mission. I can't be worried about paperwork or word. I said, well, no. And so a large part of this is getting people clarity around, no, we have to wear our mission hat and we got to wear our functional manager hat.
Yeah, good way to put it.
And no one had said that to him before. And so there's a large part of what I had to do is, that's typical in any organization, really, but
Yeah.
I find in a strong mission-driven organization, it's pretty prevalent.
Is there a lesson, Tom, to other nonprofit leaders? Again, you, I think, beautifully combine the philanthropic elements of a nonprofit, but obviously you got a lot of earned revenue, which is the business side. Right. And I've had conversations on this podcast with others who say, yeah, a lot of nonprofits only seek that kind of charitable giving. But it seems to me what you're doing might be an even better combination. Sure, you get some charitable support, but it's the earned revenue side. I wonder, would you have that advice for other nonprofits? Doesn't fit everywhere.
Yeah. So let me as context to my advice. I was going to say, so we're blessed with having donors who are very generous. So
yes,
about 65% of our 70% of our revenue comes in with donations. The rest is a split between business revenue and government grants. Okay?
Gotcha.
So we have this blending of it. But the point is particularly folks who are running nonprofits who are more social enterprise oriented. My advice is this. So like how I said it this way, in our social enterprises, we need to run those like the for-profit businesses, except for the labor line. So we carry 2 to 3 times as much labor as what a normal for-profit would have, but we have donors who sort of understand the value of why we're giving people jobs and work.
Right.
So my point is, you got this P&L, you got an income statement. Everything on that income statement needs to look like a for-profit business,
good,
except the labor line. And so people need to worry about cost of goods. They need to worry about shrinkage. They need about customer service. They need about quality of product and food, and manage the workforce. But we're not going to beat them up over having too many labor hours because that's supplemented elsewhere. And so I think that's sort of a big distinction folks need to have. Distinction that folks need to have along the way.
What have you learned from Father Greg in terms of his management style? You had, again, great experience, but obviously you gravitated towards someone who also has great management experience. I wonder what you might share, a highlight or two.
Yeah. Let me, since you gave me the floor, I'm going to take your question. Right. I don't want to miss this point. I've learned so much from Father Greg. But what Father Greg has really reinforced and gotten me to believe deeper in is that God loves all of us. God's too busy loving us to be judging us. And although that statement sounds so good and cliche, it's so true. we're not judged. And once we realized we're not being judged, we stopped judging others. Because like I was that corporate CEO that was judging, measuring, judging, evaluating people all the time. And I understand the context that was in, but in the end, it was like learning not to judge is a big part of it. Second thing, that's big point number one.
Yes.
Yeah. Second is this concept of helping the individual and not worrying about how that affects the whole organization. So, Greg and the team, I mean, he did a good job of building a team and inculcating these concepts, right? It's let's help the person in front of us with their challenges. Let's not worry about setting precedent, make sure what we're doing for person X, we're doing for person Y, because let's see what it takes that person to sort of thrive and do well. And it may be you come in, say, and you need $300 because you're behind on your rent or your gas is going to get cut off. We're going to help you. But if the guy comes in tomorrow, may ask for the same amount of money, but we understand the circumstances. Our folks are in their life. They understand the whole 24 hours of their life, and we may say no. So it's this concept of the individual and not worrying how that affects the whole organization, which is so hard for corporate people to do. Because I was a corporate guy. I was learning, learned by all those rules. You got to set precedent. You got to worry about being sued. You got to worry about all those things. But I see how treating people as individuals and they're catering to their needs works in the aggregate, and it works actually pretty well.
There are lessons that transfer back to corporate, don't they? As you are articulating so well. But let me run this by you, because I run into a lot of well-intentioned corporate talent. Let's just put it this way, who I think believe that they have the skill and experience. They can just kind of roll into nonprofit, and I think nonprofit leaders sometimes get defensive. Hey, Tom thinks he knows a whole lot more than we do. He's coming in, he's going to tell us what to do. But you strike me as someone who has the finesse and the self-awareness, I guess, to bridge that. But are there lessons, I guess, for the for-profit types who, well-intentioned, they want to come in and take over a nonprofit, but how do we help guide them and maybe transfer successfully?
Yeah. And that's a good question. And so when I first came into Homeboy, and I remember sitting down with Father Greg and learning as much as I can and listen to him talk. And he says something that I now say to all people coming into Homeboy and all volunteers, right? And he said to me, he said, come in, be part of our community. Don't do anything right away. Just be here. Just absorb what we're about. And which sounds, again, it sounds so nice but it's so true to that. Particularly if you're working in a human services organization where you're helping clients move their life forward. You have to kind of absorb it and understand what those challenges are. And so, look, I say this to volunteers all the time. Because we are blessed with volunteers. Thankful we have so many volunteers. We have 40 doctors in a tattoo clinic, 30 mental health professionals. We have umpteen number of educators, and we're blessed with volunteers. But I say to new volunteers coming in, again, just come in, prepare the community. It's not about coming in and wagging our finger at people saying, you got to learn more, right? But also I said, listen, there's 1,000 things wrong we do every day. We don't answer the phone quickly. We may serve cold cups of coffee. We don't answer emails. We may have whatever. But the thing we do right every day is we know our mission. We help people get out of gang life. And that takes the precedence. And so all this other stuff we're going to fix. I'm not saying it's okay to serve a cold cup of coffee.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not, I can't tell you how many volunteers run into my office and complain, hey, do you know what just happened? It's like, okay, but it's a small issue compared to a person issue.
The mission, right? The
mission. And so to your question is, if you're going in, I so much advocate someone who's worked in the for-profit world, go work in the nonprofit world. Bring those skills to use. Because listen, for-profit companies have resources, they have leading edge thinking, they have sort of great ideas along the way. Let's bring them into the nonprofit. It's very rewarding to move to the nonprofit space. But just, kind of be like me. Don't be like me where I had all the hubris at the beginning.
Right.
Thankfully, I had a Father Greg that kind of could slow me down.
Yeah.
Many organizations don't have that type of leader that could slow someone down. But you just got to moderate yourself.
Right. Well, again, delighted you and Father Greg had that relationship, and you had the willingness to learn, even though you had great experience when you started. I can't help but ask, Tom. I mean, that you're doing tons of great work in Southern California, but communities all over the world could use some of the things you're doing. What's the vision for Homeboy Industries? How big do you want to be? How far do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So I'll answer this in two ways. Listen, so LA County still has 125,000 gang members.
A lot more to help.
So there's a lot more to help. And look, as a corporate guy, it frustrates me because you always want to grow and scale. But, listen, 15 people interview a week to become part of Homeboy Industries. And just based on churn and our resources, we can probably only take one or two. Now, we reverse cherry pick. We take the person who needs us the most.
Okay.
Right. But the point is, as a business guy, I'm turning away 12 people a week. That's heartbreaking. They want to get out of gang life. There's no other place in LA County for them to get this type of help. And so what drives me forward is to get more resources so we can help more people.
Yep.
So we're LA focused. That being said, we've had a lot of visitors. We're a model program for gang intervention and rehabilitation work. So prior to the pandemic, every year we had about 10,000 visitors come through our doors, learn what we're about, groups and organizations. And so about 8 years ago, Greg Rayleigh's vision was let's get everybody together and let's have a homeboy network of affiliated organizations.
Yeah,
so we're willing to share what we do. We're open source. Come in, learn, spend 2 days, 3 days with us. We'll tell you everything we know. Go back to your community and do the same. So now we have over 150 organizations around the country, 42 states and 7 countries around the world who've modeled themselves after Homeboy Industries and part of our global Homeboy network where we share best practices. And so, that's where we want to, so two things. We want to grow in LA County. We want to grow our global network of like-minded folks. But the third ambition is to really stand with the demonizing until the demonizing stops and to be an advocate that these are good people. Let's not have society throw away this group of population. And so it's about trying to bring voice to that. Is still what we're heading to do.
Love it. That's the ultimate message, isn't it? For all the other things that, and again, so if I'm listening from a community anywhere in the world, I don't have to, quote, be a franchise, so to speak, of Homeboy Industries. You're open source. Is that available on your website?
Call us up. We'll talk over the phone. Come visit us.
Nice.
Happy to share.
Yeah, we'll make sure we include in the show notes where they can find out more about that. Something else I'm impressed with what you're doing, Tom, in addition to this book, which becomes a wonderful kind of tribute to the work you're doing. You're speaking to a lot of college students. And I'm fascinated and encouraged by many of them thinking about nonprofit leadership. Tell me about what messages you're delivering to those university, undergraduate, graduate students, and I don't know, maybe some of the questions or conversations you're having on campus.
Yeah, no, it's thankfully there's a shift out there that more people want to find purpose in their job for sure.
Exactly,
and that translates to working with people, and thankfully people on the margins of our society along the way. So so there's a good trend that way. And my saying is, yes, go for it. Don't overthink it. Just jump in.
Do it.
Do it. Now there's two things. One is when I'm also speaking to graduate schools, business graduate schools or undergraduates, right? And they think about social enterprise of running a business with a mission. I say, absolutely. But I want to be really clear. I say to them, I said, a couple ways of going about this. Go out and get a job in the for-profit world, learn how to run that business in the for-profit world, and then go back to the nonprofit world to do that. Because for a social enterprise business dealing with people, right, you have to really know how to run it to make money. Because if you're running a losing business, you never
doesn't help anybody, right?
It doesn't help anybody. And so there's that aspect of it that, and it's the other thing is I talk about same thing. It's understand what the mission is and what the mission isn't as you're jumping into an organization, right? And so buzzwords, mission creep, and all that, but you want to have a really clearly defined mission so that everybody understands. And so as you're going into an organization, make sure that fits you and fits who your values are along the way.
But you're encouraged, I guess you are, the fact that they're asking questions about these socially responsible businesses is a good sign.
Yes. Very good sign. And my only little tweak to this is, for the most part, which is fine. People are thinking about green businesses and sustainable businesses, which is fine. We actually have a Homeboy electronic recycling company where we pick up electronic waste and do that. So that's one of our businesses as well.
Nice.
But we're doing that. But I try to keep encouraging people. Yep, great. Do a green business, but also do a business where you're going to employ people that you never thought you would employ, and that they create a quality job along the way.
And that has come up as well, Tom. I'm glad you bring it up, that perhaps we create barriers, and many, including nonprofit organizations, I would suggest, have created barriers that, in fact, would prevent them from hiring some of the talent that, frankly, you're willing to see.
Yeah. And in fact, yes. And so let's not create those barriers. And I'm really proud of the fact that over half of our senior staff are former clients. So this concept of people lived experience, it's not easy to do as a top leader to sort of, if you're struggling with bottom line and struggling with resources, you also have to sort of make a dedicated effort to promote people from within, people lived experience, and recognize that, like, our folks come with tremendous skills and tremendous intuitive leadership skills, but they have to have that formal training as well. And so you have to spend resources and time and recognize that people learn at different paces. But we're at the point now that over half of our senior staff are former clients with lived experience. And the hope is that as they move further on up to the executive leadership, we can do the same. And that's an important part of having a long-term successful nonprofit organization.
Yeah, you practice what you preach, and that's well put. And again, lots of wisdom out of this discussion, Tom. Thank you. And among the things I'm taking away is that point, if I'm a nonprofit leader or thinking about it, you're saying, again, we got to still have business acumen, right? There is, because I do think sometimes the well-intentioned nonprofit leader goes straight into the program, the human service. But I want to make sure I'm clear. You're saying, but hey, don't forget to learn the business side as well.
Don't forget to learn the business. Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other advice you would offer if someone approached you and say, hey, Tom, I want to kind of follow the path you're on? Any other advice you might offer?
You went from the for-profit world to the nonprofit?
Yeah, maybe the transition, or just starting a nonprofit, either one.
Well, the advice is definitely jump in. Take that concept of best practices. There's some well-run nonprofits and not well-run nonprofits, and go find the ones that are doing well and the better ones, and learn from them, and get a good board in place. Understand what the board's about before you jump into a nonprofit. Do they have the right type of skills that provide guidance and governance to the organization is another key part for nonprofit leaders along the way. And do they have, it's hard to say this, but do they have the resources to provide for quality management, right? And so oftentimes I've seen so many nonprofits kind of fail because they didn't put the money into having quality managers, or maybe they didn't have the money to put into quality managers.
Good point. Leadership development, right? Or lack thereof is a defining factor. How do you keep getting better, Tom? You strike me as someone that has been a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you have not settled.
No, I do a lot of reading for sure. I talk to a lot of other organizations. There's so much new I had to learn, or in this nonprofit space, and learning about gang members, and learning about mental health, and learning about substance abuse health. And there's so many things that I just try to keep my eyes open and keep on paying attention to it.
Well, you're a wonderful example. And I am struck by not the best leaders tend not to be satisfied with where they are. You have to keep learning, especially in the world you're in. Tom, you've written a fantastic book, The Homeboy Way. We're going to lift it up in every way possible. Has there been a book, however, in addition to your own, that we'll lift up, maybe that's been meaningful to you that you would recommend to our listeners?
Sure. I'm going to ask if I can say 2 books.
You go for it.
Okay. Father Greg Boyle, our founder, has written a book. He has 3 books, but his first book, Tattoos on the Heart, is just a beautiful book. It shines a light on the goodness of people. It's, people, I read it, and you're in each chapter, and there's a part in each chapter where you laugh, and there's a part in each chapter where you cry, and it's sort of overall, you feel good about humanity from reading that book.
Love it. Yes.
Yeah. The second book is Dorothy Day, her autobiography, The Long Loneliness.
Tell me why that touched you.
Why that? So here it is. So Catholic worker, she started Catholic worker movement 100 years ago, right? And here's this woman who just wanted to help the poor and bring light to the issues of the poor in New York City and across the country, but she started in New York City.
Yep.
And I thought, well, anybody who runs a nonprofit, hopefully as they read this, they'll get the same out of it as me. It's, oh my gosh, like 100 years later, we still have some of the same problems in our society. And to see how Dorothy Day went about trying to fix them or solve them or advocate for them is sort of enlightening. And, it's also some chuckling. I'm thinking, oh, she ran a bakery, had trouble finding bread.
Familiar, right?
She had the state of New York say you didn't pay your taxes and that she had to figure out how to go pay your taxes. I mean, it's like there's so many things that as you're running a nonprofit, you end up with challenges. And here she was 100 years before. And she's a beautiful writer. And obviously, there's a move to make her a saint as well.
That's nice.
But it was to me a very inspiring book.
Well, two great recommendations that need to be on our collective bookshelves. So thank you, Tom, for lifting them up, as well as for writing what you did in the Homeboy way. Where can people go to find out more about you and the great work you're doing?
Yeah, so homeboyindustries.org is our website. We have a pretty good website and also a pretty good following on Facebook. And I encourage people to go to our Facebook and watch some of the videos, as part of people, as our clients or call them trainees, as part of their transformation, they need to understand their story and own their story. And oftentimes we're doing videos of people telling their stories. And it's look, we don't romance the gang life, but we do talk about their struggles and we do talk about their transformation, and it's uplifting along the way. So come to our homepage, Facebook page or our .org page.
Fantastic. Tom, thank you so much for joining me on the path.
Thank you, Pat, and thank you for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Tom as much as I did and came away with some practical ideas that can guide you on your nonprofit leadership journey. And if you're in the for-profit industry, perhaps you will find leadership nuggets of wisdom that will help you there as well. As always, thanks for sharing this episode with just one other person on the path. And if you want to find out more information about this episode, make sure you go to our website, pattonmcdowell.com, and you can find out more about Tom, how to learn more from Homeboy Industries, and of course, you can find a link to get his fantastic book called The Homeboy Way. If you want to catch every one of these weekly episodes on our podcast, make sure you go to the podcast page. It's at pattonmcdowell.com. You can find the follow button, and that will assure you can get to this podcast from any of the primary podcast platforms. Don't miss out on any of our weekly episodes. They come out every Thursday. And if you like this episode, click on the episodes button at the top of the page. You can scroll through thumbnails of each and every of what is now more than 157 podcast episodes. Thanks for all you're doing in the nonprofit sector, especially right now. And keep up the good work for causes that are most meaningful to you. I'll keep bringing you content that can help you do it even better. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time on The Path.